Well, it's been a year, and our, equipment has taken a hard beating. How you been, JJ?
I've been doing all right, Andrew. How are you?
Okay, yeah, there's a decent amount of work going on over here, trying to get ready, for this impending addition to our family.
Is it fair to say that you are on Baby Watch 2017?
We are officially in full Baby Watch mode over here, so...
You have a prepper kit ready, and the car has gas in it, and you could be leaving anytime, including during this podcast.
That's part of it, yeah, definitely. Hopefully not during this podcast. That would be kind of an emergency thing currently. So we should be golden at this point. But, it just leaves us with a lot of homeowner's minute material. Like this week when I rearranged our entire garage so that I could fit in our new deep freezer.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
This thing is huge. Huge.
It's just like a box, right?
Yeah, it's one of the chest type ones, not the standing refrigerator type. So you just get a huge bin to kind of throw everything to freeze in.
So like one that you would put all the meat that you got when you went out hunting.
You could probably fit an entire...
cow. Could you fit a side of beef in it?
You could fit a side of beef in this, yeah, definitely. Or a whole steer.
That's really big. What are you going to do with that?
Well, last time around, Katie actually filled the entire freezer with milk. In the future, hopefully there's a few duck hunting trips and maybe stopping in Paso Robles and getting a side of steer or something like that. They do a lot of boar hunting up there, so maybe we could stop there and grab from the butcher in town.
Yeah, there is I remember the last time I was up in San Luis Obispo, we had some really great meats. So there's, up in that area, if you drive through, I'm sure there would be something awesome you could get. How's
your house falling apart?
It's pretty good. Refrigerator repair, incoming, potentially. Yeah, that's actually happening probably later today as of the recording of this podcast. So, that'll be interesting. Maybe I'll have something to say about that then. The problem is intermittent though, so that's good. I don't know. I mean, the ice buildup is still there, so that part's bad.
I think the problem being intermittent might actually be bad, right? It's harder to diagnose.
Yeah. Well, but you can force the problem to happen in the diagnostic mode, right? Like the refrigerator has like a little manual, or not a manual, but like a little sheet of paper that tells you how to enter diagnostic mode, which I did. And then it lets you turn on the various components and supposedly checks them. Mm-hmm. But I don't really know how it does that because it doesn't. Anyway, it's just it's like, hey, turn on the fan. You turn on this one fan and then it's freaking loud. And then you're like, turn that fan off. Okay, well, that's the one that's the problem. I can tell immediately. It's just a question of why is it so loud? And I don't have the tools to disassemble the part of the refrigerator where that is.
I think that's best left to somebody else at that point.
Yeah. If it was the compressor motor in the back or whatever, there are some things that are accessible from the backside that I could get to. Okay, but it's not. So time for a professional.
But at a certain point, should you? I mean, isn't your fridge under a long-term kind of warranted thing?
I don't remember how long the warranty was when I bought it. But I believe it is now out of that period.
Oh. Well, is there positive news? A little birdie told me that you may be getting a delivery as well.
Yeah, we purchased some more furniture for the house. So that's good. We're getting a cabinet for the living room to fill with all the games and stuff that I have. So that's good.
So it looks a little bit more cleaner around the house, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. And then we wanted to get a buffet table kind of thing, and a sideboard, I guess. Can
I sound like a real old kind of 73-year-old man from the 1940s for a second?
Shaking your fist at the sky and the children on your lawn?
Sure, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. Not necessarily. I could kind of be one of those gentlemen that just sit in their rocker drinking lemonade too.
Oh, okay. Those are good.
Yeah. Buffet tables are awesome.
I don't have a particular opinion. we just need storage space in the kitchen/dining room area, and this is like the most storage space we could get that would fit and not just look like we just bought a bunch of cabinets.
Allow me this for a second.
Okay.
Before owning a larger home with room in it rather than the condo where we didn't have a lot of room, I always pictured that your table was the centerpiece of a room. And sometimes it may be, depending on the table that you buy. I know somebody that just purchased a large slab of, I believe, oak that's like 10 feet long. So, something like that is a centerpiece. But for the rest of us with normal tables, it's not really the centerpiece. Buffets, man. You could walk into a room and you buy something crazy to put at the end of the room that, even though it's storage, looks super cool. I'm getting real excited about a buffet, and that makes me sound super old.
All right. We're in there. Got the most important stuff together, We want to make sure our houses look good.
Dang right.
So there'll be some shuffling of dishes and cabinets that things are stored in. The games will go into the other room, and then we'll rearrange all the various dishes and plates and glasses and stuff between the various cabinets.
Right on. So it sounds like we're both in kind of like cleanup mode, which I've also extended to my computer. I finished Skyrim last week, and I looked at my Steam library, and I said, all this stuff that I've played before, including like Civ 5 and everything else, off my hard drive. So I cleaned out about 40 gigs worth of space of old games from Steam, and I only left the stuff I haven't played, so that if I turn this thing on, it's a game that I haven't played that's installed, or, a Blizzard game maybe, because I can't uninstall those. You have daily quests, but ignoring that part.
Right.
Yeah, man, my PC is like digitally clean. Not my Mac, but my PC for sure.
It's sometimes you have to declutter in real life, and you got to digitally declutter sometimes too.
Yeah, there's there's like the room that is only a little bit messy, and you clean that one up. That was my PC. And then there's like the room with all your clothes thrown on the floor, and you just kind of stare at it and then move on. That's my Mac.
And that's where you just close the door to that room and put up the police tape, be like, don't go in there.
Exactly. What have you been up to, dude?
Not a whole lot. I talked about starting a new game this week, and I did. I got just a little bit into it. Not a deep ways, but it's another RPG. Go figure. Called Cosmic Star Heroine.
Set in space, I assume.
It is set in some kind of space. This was a Kickstarter from a long time ago that I backed. And it's kind of it's made by the people who made games you may have known or heard of: Cthulhu Saves the World, Breath of Death 7, and some of those old penny arcade RPGs. I don't know if you ever played any of those.
No, do they still make those? They don't do that anymore, do they?
No, that series concluded. There were like 4 of them, I think, and this company made the 3rd and 4th ones. Anyhow, so this is like their first, like, quote, big game, unquote. Those other games were like maybe like, 5 to 7 hours total. Sort of like quick stories and like, RPG stuff where you level up and stuff, but not like a long thing. This one is supposedly bigger and longer and has a bunch of different party members and all kinds of stuff. But I didn't get too deep in, but I did get deep enough to learn sort of the battle system, and I want to talk with you about it a little bit, Andrew. Do you like turn-based combat?
Yeah, I think so. Certain types of turn-based combat. The system's more like Final Fantasy X, or I think, was it 12 also had this, where you could kind of see the order. The old games, you could kind of guess at the order based on if you looked up what the speed of the monster was and what the speed of your people was. But in especially 10, they had the like list on the side, and every action you took, you could see what affected what order things were going to come up in.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's pretty strategic, especially in those types of games where you have so many spells and effects going off. And I have to be honest that I haven't played the newer Final Fantasy games to
a lot of them don't have that.
Right. The newer real-time combat. I have played Kingdom Hearts, and that's an RPG with real-time combat, and I actually like that too. So if it's Kingdom Hearts style real-time RPG combat, I'm a fan. I don't know if you've ever played that series, but it's...
I have played some of the Kingdom Hearts games.
Okay, so that type of battle system I enjoy, and the FF10 turn-based battle system I enjoy. If it's kind of in between, or if it's on the older end, I'm kind of not as big a fan. So what does this end up like?
Andrew, there is a literal bar on the side that shows your actions and your party members and the enemies and the turn order. It showed it's just a list on the side, and it's scrolling all the time, of you and your various party members and then the enemies, so you can see whose actions are when in the order.
And do actions you take affect your orders? It was very
fortuitous you brought that up, actually, because it's actually in there. It can.
So actions you take can affect it.
Right, it just depends on what you're doing. So the conceit for this battle system is that each character has their set of skills, right? Skills can be given to you by either items you have equipped or by the sci-fi kind of game, right, in space. So there's programs or shields, things like that are like shields, like in starship kind of shields, not like armor shields. Although maybe that too,
like a bubble.
Right. Yes. And then you can characters can have one of their skills is hackitude, and so if you have a high enough hackitude stat, you get more programs out of your, and they're essentially just abilities, right, out of your various equipped shield. And basically, so in battle, right, every character will have one skill that they can reuse over and over, and then another smaller subset of skills that are one use until you refresh. And the refresh, or I think it varies from character to character, but it has some kind of defensive component, and then also allows you to use all of your other one-use skills again.
Wow.
So the main character's version, when you use that ability, it heals you for 25% of your health, and then it allows you to use your one-time attacks again. The one-time attacks, generally a little bit stronger than the reusable attack.
Yeah, of course.
Right, obviously.
It's like a limit break almost, right?
No, not quite that strong. But definitely so for instance, this one would, one of the examples is it hits one enemy, but it does piercing damage instead of regular damage. Or this one is a water spell, right? She can
kind of adds elemental or status effects.
Yeah. Or there's one that increases the power of one of your allies by 30% for 3 turns.
Cool.
And so then the next things that they do are a little bit stronger for those times. But you've used that once, you then have to spend one of your turns to defend, in this case heal, and it then allows you to use those again.
It almost sounds like a variation on the Bravely Default system, which I'm actually thinking is my next return to making a complete promise, by the way.
Yeah. It does have a little bit of that, only you can't, unlike in Bravely Default, where you can mortgage your turns in advance to kind of alpha strike the enemy.
Right, yeah.
You can't do that in this game.
But kind of like a regenerative SP type thing. Okay, you can't do that ability until you take a break.
And your characters have this mode they call Hyper, which after they've taken a certain number of turns in battle, they enter Hyper mode. And there's a little bar on the side, and there's just little pips on that bar, and every time you take a turn, one of them fills up, and then once the bar fills up, your character kind of glows, and you get this hyper mode. And hyper mode lasts for, I think, 1 turn, and whatever you do on that turn in hyper mode does a bunch of extra whatever.
Sweet.
So you really end up spending a lot of time thinking about ordering your actions and making sure your characters have their stuff ready for when that hyper mode turn comes around, right? And then you blast the enemy for stacking all your modifiers and stuff to line them up. It seems to be a big focus of the combat.
It sounds like it takes turn-based combat and really amplifies the need to plan.
Yeah, and so the game has items in it, right? Like in RPGs, except that in this game, your items are not stuff like healing potions and stuff. Your characters all have those abilities. You have they're one use per battle. You have to equip them as if they were slots on a on a grid. and they have some effect that affects the battle, but you can only use them once per battle, right? So there's one item that attempts to poison someone, right? Like it does some kind of poison effect, but that poison effect lasts the entire round. Obviously, you can't poison a robot, right? Like that's the obvious kind of rules for poison apply. But, the recurring damage like that, like the poison damage that it deals is strong. Like it deals as much damage as like a regular attack. So that's just like free damage every turn if you use that poison ability, right?
Wow.
Well, like, what if you use the poison ability while you're in hyper? Like, oh, now all of a sudden the poison damage is like really strong. But it takes a while to do it because it, goes over time. So
right.
Or over the turns, right? So you have to continue surviving the onslaught or whatever. Meanwhile, this poison ticks down. It's a really interesting system. I'm excited to dig more into it. I've only had 2 characters in my party so far. One of whom your main character, Alyssa, is like a space secret agent, and her friend, whose name is like, I don't know how to pronounce, there's too many H's in it. It's like Chahan, Chahan, maybe? I don't know. Anywho.
Is it like a silent C, like Hanukkah?
Could be. Who can say? Not me.
Hahan?
Hahan? Could be. I don't know. She's a gunmancer, which I think is a cool word.
It's an awesome word.
She makes guns appear out of the air and shoot people.
What?
Yeah, dude, it's cool. It's like gunmancy, man. It's like being a necromancer except for guns.
Nice.
It just makes them appear out of the air and shoot people. And sometimes they heal you.
I don't really care about the battle system anymore. I'm in.
And some of her abilities are like, she has one spell that, one of the non-reusable ones that makes her next attack affect all enemies. So, like, you have to plan a turn in advance. Okay, I'm going to line up my power-ups. Happens on this turn. Okay, the turn before that, I need to use the one that affects everyone. And then on the next turn, I need to use the big attack. Like, it's like a lot of, like, A, B, and then on turn C, like, bam, 500% damage kind of stuff.
Crazy. Awesome. So where do you land on the battle system front? We didn't even... we got my opinion, but we didn't get your opinion, especially in light of this game.
I was mostly interested in leading you into the discussion here, but I do enjoy these systems. Like specifically in this case, it's really fun to like plan out how your damage works, and your characters don't have that much health. So like if you just like screw around and try to just like use the reusable attack over and over, you're just gonna die. Like you're not gonna kill anyone.
So you can't just spam like you can in Bravely Default.
Even on the like normal enemies or whatever,
right.
Yeah, you can go back and grind, of course.
Sure.
But even on the just normal enemies walking around, if you are just like hitting attack and not thinking about any of your moves or anything, you're probably not going to get through the trash enemies.
Wow, cool.
Which is pretty fun. I am playing on the difficulty 1 up from normal, which is named Heroine difficulty, but the creators of the game said that is their preferred difficulty for people who have played a lot of their games and other RPGs before. So as I fall into that category, I figured I would follow their advice.
Interesting that a lot of people now make easy actually super easy.
Yeah, and they actually have a difficulty below normal that's just like, hey man, I just want to see the story, dude. Like, all this thinking about the turn-based battle stuff, like, let's just not. Get me through it. You'll see it. It's fun. You'll have a good time. But we're going to see the story here. And then, the normal mode, hey, it's a little bit easier. You still got to think some, but you're probably all right. And then this mode, we're like, hey, dude, like, let's pay attention to the battle system. Cause
easy mode is basically just watching YouTube.
It could be. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't tried it, so...
All right. Well, we did tease a guest this week, but I think we have some news. It's kind of nice to be recording not exactly live sometimes because I can keep my news feed open and I can tell you before we get to our crazy big news, there's also big news.
Big news.
Breaking right now. How much do you like Ducktales, dude?
Breaking news. Dude, Ducktales is all right.
I was pretty excited. There's this new Ducktales coming, and even though the new intro song really sucks.
Ducktales, woo. Right? Like,
look, they had a good song.
Know.
Just use the old one. That's my only qualm with the new version. But David Tennant's in it, so I'll watch. It doesn't really matter.
Okay. They got you.
Who's the best duck?
In DuckTales?
Oh, yeah. There's only one answer, by the way.
I mean, it's Scrooge.
No.
Scrooge McDuck is not the best.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Are you
try again?
Try it. No? Like,
Gizmo
you gonna
Duck.
try to say it? No, dude.
Gizmo Duck.
Gizmo Duck is so lame. He's an accountant. How lame?
Gizmo Duck.
Okay. We clearly have differing opinions here. I mean, Gizmo Duck is cool, but, like, he's a unicycle. That's weird.
He's only a unicycle when he's in, like, superhero mode. Right?
Yeah. Isn't that what Gizmo Duck is? He's not Gizmo Duck the rest of the time. He's just a dude.
I guess.
Oh, look, I like Gizmo Duck. There's nothing wrong with Gizmo Duck. He's not Scrooge,
Well,
though.
Gizmo Duck got cooler.
Oh? How?
He's going to be Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
How crazy is that?
That's pretty cool.
They're just lining up heroes to do this DuckTales show, man.
Got this hot voice talent.
Yeah. Okay,
That's
maybe
pretty
Gizmo
awesome.
Duck's not the best, but he certainly is pretty good.
That's pretty cool.
Launchpad's the other good one, too.
Launchpad's pretty cool.
Maybe Launchpad's better than Scrooge. No?
I don't
Still
know.
not happening?
Scrooge is the one that goes on all the adventures, you know? Launchpad's just like his pilot. Launchpad works for Scrooge, right?
Oh, you're just going monetary, huh? You're like, Scrooge is the best because he pays the bills?
Well, I mean, also that, but like, you know, like Scrooge isn't bad. He's not a bad guy. He's got a heart of gold, you know? They helping adopting all of Donald's kids while Donald goes off to the Navy or something?
No. They're not Donald's kids either.
Yeah, they are.
No, they're not.
They are.
They are not.
They are Donald Duck's kids.
They are not Donald Duck's kids.
How is Scrooge their uncle?
Donald is also their uncle.
Oh, they call him Uncle Donald also?
Uh-huh.
So then whose father? Like, who's
fathering
the
these
parents
children?
for these kids that Scrooge has to take them in? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Who are their parents?
Great question.
Who
Donald
are
Duck.
Huey, Dewey, and
Are we
Louie?
doing research on this podcast? Hold on.
This is too important.
Too important?
Sons of Donald's sister Della Duck.
Okay.
There you go.
So Donald's sister is a floozy, apparently, and just has children and foists them upon her brother. What a woman.
And their full names are Hubert, Deuteronomy, and Lewis. It kind of would have made more sense to make them Donald's kids, but
right?
Yeah, I know. I'm not disagreeing.
The
on
easy
that
narrative in my head is very easy, and now you've complicated it with some person I never knew existed.
Yeah, they're always hanging out with their uncles all the time. Like
weird
absentee parenting, I guess. Anyway,
exactly.
There's bigger news than this, and that is about Destiny 2. We never ever talk about Bungie games on here ever.
I was never a big person playing Bungie games, and like part of that was because I didn't have the Microsoft consoles, but also part of it was because like all my friends had them, and I would play Halo over there, and then okay. I didn't feel the need to do more Haloing at home.
But we do play games from another company all the time.
Yeah.
Blizzard Entertainment.
Right. Blizzard Entertainment, the noted makers of games like Destiny. Oh, wait, the other thing, where they didn't make it.
We posted this online, but it's huge, man. Huge.
Destiny 2 will be coming to Battle.net, and yet they call it Battle.net. This is what I really wanted to talk about. I don't care about the actual news that Destiny 2 is going to be on the Blizzard launcher or whatever. This news story that talks about it coming to the Blizzard launcher calls it Battle.net.
Even though they said it's not
Battle.net
anymore.
Yeah, what the heck?
That makes you wonder how long this has been in development if they didn't proofread again.
Yeah, like what? That whole thing talks about, Battle.net is a service, and like we're happy to support other games, and like we're not talking about any games outside of Destiny 2 right now, but yeah, Battle.net, blah blah blah, and you're just like, come on.
I think this really puts into perspective that this has been in the works for a long time.
Oh sure.
Why would you rebrand Battle.net into the Blizzard launcher unless you were thinking about possibly bringing things in that, other players that don't know what Battle.net is, or outside, Blizzard using the huge company name and just saying this is the Blizzard launcher really opens it up to marketability. And Activision, unlike Valve and like EA, didn't have their own release platform, right? Like EA doesn't put games on Steam anymore, and Valve doesn't make games anymore, but
also true.
Dota is not on Origin, which is EA's platform, and Origin or Mass Effect isn't on Steam, and now Activision's going to say, "Hey, Blizzard, I know we said we'd leave you alone and all, but how about putting our published games on your platform?"
So, I wonder, are they going to start doing that? But I mean, that they announced that Destiny 2 was coming to PC when they announced Destiny 2, right? So, quite a while ago.
Yeah.
So they've known, right? But you have to imagine that at that time they were like, okay, how are we going to do all this like PC integration stuff with a game that was never on PC before, right? The original game was not on PC. So, okay, well, consoles handle all that, like, servers and connectivity stuff for you on those platforms, right? None of that is handled for you on the PC. You got to set all that stuff up.
Sure.
So, okay, well, you want to have a friends list and all that stuff, got to set that up too. So, you can just see the meeting go down where they're like, this other company over here has all these friends lists and all this server stuff, and they run this giant MMO. Like, what if we just said, hey, and like paid them a bunch of money to use their stuff?
Are they getting paid? They may not be.
I mean, they can't not be being paid. Someone has to. There's some engineer somewhere who has to design the Blizzard launcher with the little Destiny 2 logo in it and connect all the back end stuff. Like, it's not.
Employees get paid, but the companies are the same company. It's kind of like I don't think Bungie is a. Bungie is no Bungie. Bungie is a separate company, but Activision is publishing the game for them. So
then the publisher then has to pay Blizzard.
But Activision and Blizzard are the same company.
Oh, I see. Well, someone's budget got like, a plus 50,000 or something somewhere in it to offset the extra costs of integrating all this stuff.
Yeah, which is it's just odd because there's never been this cross-pollination. Activision said,
yeah, it's really weird.
You do your thing, we do our thing. We're the same company, but
the app is the Blizzard launcher, right? It used to be called Battle.net, but like whatever, it's where you launch your Blizzard games, and then now also Destiny 2.
Well, imagine the animosity if Activision said, "Hey, that's now the Activision launcher." And
people would
and
be
all
so
the
mad.
Blizzard games and the Activision games go under one umbrella there. It's a lot easier for them to say, well, we're just going to kind of like stick this in and see if anyone on WoW notices, and maybe they'll buy the game. And then, next time they want to do it 6 months from now, they'll stick another one game in there.
And now if you want to chat to your friend playing Destiny 2, you can do it while you're playing Hearthstone.
Right, exactly.
So, it's just really strange to me, the whole situation. I'm not, like, against it necessarily. I mean, look, I have no control over it, right? If they're going to do it, they're going to do it. But it's just a strange association to make. Like, here's the platform where we put all of our Blizzard games, but now also this other weird game by the makers of Halo.
It's more weird because Activision publishes the game, right? So...
And by the way, Activision publishes all kinds of stuff on lots of platforms. Like they publish Call of Duty every year. That's on Origin. That's on Steam. That's on every platform they can put it on.
Sure.
And Destiny 2 now isn't. It's only on the Blizzard launcher platform.
Well, so what's odd about this is once you publish, right, it's kind of like a finite relationship in a certain way. And the statement says that Bungie is going to be managing all the servers and everything else. So... What's the integration here, and how does Blizzard get locked into essentially like collaborating with Bungie for the life of Destiny when Activision published the game? That's kind of odd, right? It's like a forced marriage in a way.
I mean, the press releases and stuff said like basically, oh, Blizzard has this big social system already built up. We're just going to use all that. And let people do that way, ignoring the like giant, what do you call it? Like elephant in the room. That's like, hey, Steam has a friends system and matchmaking and all this stuff that you could have done. You just chose not to use that, probably because they wanted to pocket that 30% right? Or let Blizzard pocket the 30%, even though Blizzard and Activision are the same company. So, like, it's still them, right? That they would have to pay Valve when you publish on their platform.
Yeah. It's odd.
It's, it's clearly a business move to keep the money in-house rather than shipping it over to whoever else.
Mm-hmm. They think that this is going to be big enough that they don't want to be shipping that abroad.
Or that it's big enough that people will choose to come to them regardless of where it is. They might be right. I don't know.
It's funny that we're not talking about the game at all and only the distribution of it, but as Blizzard aficionados, I like that word a lot.
It's a good word.
It kind of is odd. It's just I guess it's an opening up of the platform that no one saw coming.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a lot of interest in playing Destiny 2.
No. But it's going to be there in our launcher now.
Yep. So cool.
There's a little bit of other Blizzard news I think we should just rattle off. There's two other things. Have you heard that the Overwatch fees for starting teams is $20 million?
Now, you are talking about teams that would be a part of this Overwatch League.
Correct.
Right? And that giant league that they announced last year at BlizzCon and have like since made more talk about. That's like this multi-year like professional league, like almost with a draft in the whole thing.
They're looking for Mark Cubans to be starting teams, not Fnatic and Evil Geniuses. They're only big money.
You realize that there are actually people like the Lakers and the 76ers who have bought esports teams in League of Legends, right? Maybe you didn't know that.
I did not know that because I don't follow any League of Legends. So fill me in on that.
Me either. But I know that it's happened, from listening to other podcasts and stuff where people have talked about it. But Rick Fox, the Laker, right, owns a esports team, along with like some other investor type people, and it's a League of Legends team. I don't remember their name, but there's a lot of money there in that, and if they can do it, right? So I guess they assume that these sports franchises and the people in those arenas are interested in this esports market, and they're like, hey, we have a very popular esports game, Overwatch. When y'all pay up to join this, I guess. I don't know. It's weird to like charge such a high upfront fee for a thing that like hasn't been proven to be popular yet.
Well, and not to sound like too much of a fanboy or something, but does it not maybe a little bit show ingratitude to the people that have worked really hard to keep esports going in a way? All these, especially Blizzard esports, has been propped up on the backs of a lot of independent companies and gamers that are scratching together between wins at larger tournaments to keep these people funded and going.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like there's real support from them on their end to say, maybe there's an open spot, a rotating team, like a traveling team or whatever from each location that can play in.
I don't know, and I'm not sure what the all the plans are for Blizzard in this giant league and all this stuff. But these esports teams are not necessarily the biggest entities. Like they certainly don't have $20 million. I can go ahead and tell you that right now. When those teams oftentimes routinely are unable to send players to events because like they can't afford the plane flight to, this part of the world, or they don't pay players hotel costs because they just don't have that money. And, if they can't send a Dota team to Kiev for a major, right, like, can't imagine that they're going to be able to scrape all their nickels and dimes together and put out an Overwatch team, right? Like, it seems like they're intentionally aiming for a market of people that is like a broader scope than these teams were a part of. And I guess that's fine. I just don't know how many people or teams are available in that market, right? Like, who has $20 million to throw at this thing that no one has really seen happen yet?
Yeah, it's a very select crowd. And it's it's their prerogative. It's their game. It's their league.
Of course. Yeah, totally.
I don't see it. I mean, it's a positive, net positive to have these teams funded initially, right? Saying I have $20 million to throw down on this means I have another $5 million to pay these people and put their plane flights together and pay them to live,
to practice and be good at this game.
And that opens up the possibility of competition and overall it creates a more atmosphere of a professionality, I guess.
It professionalizes the league, right? It makes it a job, right? Like, people say, oh, this person gets paid to play video games as like a joke, but like that actually would be their job.
Right.
Like, their job would be being paid to play this game.
So it's a net positive, I think, but it just I hope it doesn't rub too many people the wrong way and have a negative impact on the perception of the team. So we'll see as things go forward how many people pay this. This is all happening behind closed doors, so we don't really know what's going on. But
that was a leak from somewhere.
Yep.
I think to your point about the professionalism, like, too frequently currently the way people make money in esports is they get popular by playing in tournaments or being a popular streamer or whatever, and then the way they make their money is the streaming.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't actually make money from, I mean, yes, if they win the tournaments or whatever, they get money from that.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, depending on which tournaments you win, that could be enough money to live off of, but it's not an income, right? It's not a salary, right? The way they earn their salaries or their their living expenses are by streaming all the time. And streaming is not the same, right, as playing professionally. You have to entertain, you have to play in certain ways that may not be optimal for practice. And then you do stuff like, I have to show my strategy, right? Because I'm streaming. You can't hide things, you can't, practice to your fullest ability then. And so then, it just creates this weird cycle of like, well, I have to do what's best for the stream, and then that's not best for maybe me or for my team's ability to win. And well, then I have to have extra time on the top of that and it just sort of takes over your whole life. So it's a good thing. I agree with you that they move towards this more professional model, but who or how that they decide where those price points are and who has the money for this stuff, I don't know.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I guess we should end this little Blizzard section with a PSA. StarCraft is free, people. Go make a Battle/Blizzard account and go play one of the best games of all time for free.
Yeah, dude, play StarCraft. That game's good.
Yeah, it is officially the new version is launching this summer, but as of now, the old version is free to anybody that wants it. So,
and that should be you.
That should be everyone, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
No question. All right, cool. We're going to take a quick break because there's no real great segue, and we're going to bring on our special guest for this episode and
all right,
get to know a new recurring guest for the We Were Gamers podcast. Through the magic of podcasting, we're back. This time we took a break, JJ. We last time we tried to make it like super duper smooth, like nobody would know that we were.
This time we just said, nah.
Nah, we're taking a break.
It's easier if we actually just take a break and then edit it. It sounds better too.
I think so. But last week we teased a little bit that we were going to have a special guest this week, a new segment, so to speak, on this podcast, a recurring segment where we brought on a friend of the pod, a friend of mine that I've known for a long time, that's kind of been a little bit of an under the radar gamer that I discovered last time we were working together late at night in the office, JJ, just so you know. We're closing up shop. It's late at night, doing paperwork. And I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm going to go tell my buddy that I'm taking off. And I walk into his office and assuming that he's working late, I see on the screen Star Wars The Force Unleashed. And this guy's going to town. He's having a great time.
Betrayed. Thought he was working, instead playing games.
Yep. So, in an effort to keep the secretness secret, I told you last time, we're using a code name. So, welcome to the podcast, Zer0CooL.
I was Zer0CooL.
Zer0CooL crashed 1,507 systems in one day. Biggest crash in history. Front page New York Times, August 10th, 1988. I thought you was black, man. Yo, man, this is Zer0CooL! Oh, that's far out. This is Zer0CooL, man! Oh.
Yo, that's great.
Hello. I am Zer0CooL.
We're using a Hackers reference, JJ. How do you feel about that?
I love Hackers, dude. That movie is so dumb, but so amazing. You can just like yell. I feel like there's a brotherhood. Brotherhood might not be the word, but like a sense of joy I feel and like camaraderie every time I hear someone yell "hack the planet" as they're being thrown into a cop car. I think if I was to ever get arrested, I would yell "hack the planet" really loud as I was being arrested.
It's a pretty amazing cultural artifact, I think, especially now.
Yeah.
Do you remember the scene where they all get really excited because Angelina Jolie is going to let her hair down and start playing computer with the computer guys, and she's like, "I've got a 56K modem," and they're like, "Whoa, yeah, let's do it." That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a special game or movie. It really is special.
So we were trying to think of, well, what would my alias be, or what would my code name be? And I thought of my hacker name, and I thought of Zer0CooL because that's how much of a geek I really am in secret, I guess.
Yeah, and not in an embarrassed way in secret. Just kind of, I think it's more under the radar than in secret, because I told Katie that you were coming on this podcast, and obviously you've been a friend of mine and therefore a friend of hers for a long time. And I said you were coming on here, and she goes, "On your gaming podcast?" I said, "Yeah." I didn't know he played video games. So Z is now on our podcast, and we're gonna go into a little history of why you're here, and that's because in secret you've been trying out some games and modernizing yourself, and we've gotten to talking about games, and you're more of a gamer than people would expect based on saying you're in secret, dude. You go all the way back to like Ghosts and Goblins age stuff.
I go back to games that precede me in existence, or that doesn't make sense. But I play games that I did not play as a kid, but I just play them as an adult because that's what I do, and they all stop at a certain time. There's multiple reasons for it. Some of it is truly because I'm embarrassed because I have no self-control. If I start a game, especially one that's going to suck me in, I'm like obsessed with it till I finish it. And Andrew caught me in that moment because Force Unleashed was that game that at that time I was really like frustrated by because I couldn't beat it yet.
What was it? One time we had a party at the office one time, and it got kind of late, and there was just a few of us that had stayed behind at the end of this thing, and I'm helping clean up outside, and JJ, we come inside and go back into the office, same place he was playing Force Unleashed, and a few people are hanging in there, and they're halfway through Contra.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
That game is hard.
I'm like, why did no one tell me there's Contra in the back here, Z? This is not fair.
And then that's the other part of it. I'm kind of a vintage gamer, I guess. I don't even know if that's a term in real gamer parlance, but
there's no such thing as like real gamer anything, so I think it's fine.
Well,
call
I don't
yourself
know.
Whatever you want, man.
I've heard your podcast before, and I'm lost fairly quickly. I mean, you guys go through the homeowner minute. I can relate to that somewhat, although I'm not a homeowner, but I do try to fix things now and then.
What age was your apartment made?
1922.
Describe your windows.
Oh, it's the whole place is ancient. It's very old. There's you guys were talking electrical recently. Like there's still wires that are cloth wrapped, which is the way they used to do it once upon a time.
Oh, I think that's extremely illegal now.
Well,
I believe those cause fires.
I didn't say it was up to code. I just said that just happens to be the case. And they're big windows that go all the way to the floor. You know, before they made laws that said windows had to be a certain height, so stupid kids don't go falling out of them. You know, and I have a kid. I have a 6-month-old, which, by the way, my wife loves this idea. And actually, I'm jumping the gun.
Oh, no, don't worry about it, dude.
I was just going to say this notion of you guys assigning me, my wife loves this idea. Let me tell you. She's so excited.
I can't hear I don't think you used the scare quotes loudly enough in your voice there when you said loves. I think you meant loves, quote unquote.
Yes.
Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, she is. She's so excited about this idea. Let me tell you. She loves it when I play games. Actually, she's really cool. She doesn't really care a whole lot, but she thinks it's funny because she doesn't know me to play games often. So I go through these like binge periods where, that's another aspect of it. I have no self-control, and if I get into a game, I will binge on it until I complete it, and then I probably won't touch games for 3 to 6 months.
Oh, man, we've made a bad decision, JJ.
Uh-oh. We're starting a man down a life of addiction and problems.
He's got responsibilities, and we're totally torpedoing them.
That's why my gamer experience stops at a certain point, because newer games are much more involving. Contra, if you're pretty good, you could finish it, in a couple hours. If you're really good, like a speedrunner, you're probably a lot quicker. But but then you can walk away from it. You're not still wondering about what you might have missed.
Your most recent retro addiction was Donkey Kong Country, right?
That game, man. My last console, the console I still have that still runs in my living room, is the Super Nintendo. Someone introduced me to Donkey Kong Country. Somehow I missed this game when I was younger. It was their childhood game. It was the game that they loved and they were very good at. And they're like, oh, you haven't tried this one? You should try this one. We found a copy and we were playing it, and that game is hard.
Yeah, there's some levels that are really not fun in that game.
I don't understand. It reminds me of Ghosts and Goblins, or Super Ghouls and Ghosts. These are such geeky old references. I have this weird experience where I'm not technically a millennial. I'm like right on the line, but my mom worked in tech in the 80s, and we always had computers around. So I got exposed at a really young age to computers, probably before a lot of other people did. And I would play games, and the games at that time were the Sierra games. I loved the Sierra games.
Oh, man.
King's Quest, Police Quest.
King's Quest. Get Apple. Use Apple.
I played games and computer stuff fairly early.
I know we're kindred spirits, Z, because we did a DOS episode a little while ago where we named our top 5 DOS games or something like that. And my top was literally just like all the Sierra games.
They were classics, especially, oh my God, it's so archaic now too. You look at them, you have to type everything, open drawer, close door, walk to, it was insane that we played games in this way. But
I don't think it's insane at all. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's not insane. And they're still classics, by the way. It's not like they became unclassic.
True. This is a good point.
Can you feel, JJ, the cred dripping off of this guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know about
extremely.
that.
Look, you've got it. You just don't realize you've got it. You and I bonded, actually, once I saw you playing games in the office over our love of Zelda.
Yes.
You've played every Zelda game, not even owning all the systems, all the way up through, what was it, Skyward Sword or Wind Waker?
Certain franchises will bring me into the modern age of gaming, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. It's just that's the case. Like, I like Star Wars stuff, so I played some of the modern Star Wars games.
I don't think that's weird. I think people like things that they, that like franchises and groups or some people follow companies or whatever. And if you like Star Wars, awesome. Like, play some Star Wars games. There's so many.
But that brings me out of my induced stupor in terms of pretending that all games stopped after the Nintendo 64.
Oh man, all games did stop
well, there are games now I'm very aware that exist. I just don't play them. I don't know anything about them, and I get lost fairly quickly in a discussion about them. But okay, so Star Wars will and Zelda will. The Zelda games, they're classics. They're really cool. But I think up until last year, and this is how new this was, Andrew. I think it was one of our conversations that made me start thinking maybe I should try this. But up until last year, I think the latest or the newest Zelda game I had played was probably Adventure of Link, the second one. The Nintendo.
So modern.
No, it's
side-scrolling instead of top-down. Wow.
I think Andrew and I talked, and but I became aware of some Mac-based emulators that at least gave me a chance to try out newer Zelda games.
How'd you like that Ocarina of Time, buddy?
It kind of blew my mind a little bit, and this is a little embarrassing. This is only like last year, but the whole notion of locking onto something and targeting something, and then I was really learning at that beginning, the whole beginning segment where they're like teaching you how to do stuff. I was really learning, and this is only last year that I discovered that this existed, and this is
it was a big deal at the time too. So that's like you're experiencing as it was for the young child who got the N64 and the Zelda game on Christmas. They also learned that there is a third dimension and that you can have to Z target and stuff.
Z target, yes, that's the word. So I had this very precious time capsule experience with the newer Zelda game. And then the whole mechanism of traveling back and forth in time, that was sort of... Oh, I'm sorry, Link to the Past. That was the most recent one, not Adventures in Link, not a side-scroller. Because I have a Super Nintendo. I still have a Super Nintendo in my living room. It still works. It's awesome. I pick it up now and then. So that was the last Zelda game I had played up until recently. That one's still a classic. It's pretty cool.
Link to the Past is maybe the best Zelda game of all time. Let's be clear.
Really? You think so?
Yes. No question from me. It's better than all of the 3D ones. You can make arguments about Ocarina if you want, but I will pick Link to the Past.
Wow. And you guys are modern gamers. Or you were gamers.
We were gamers. That's true.
We were gamers, exactly. See, back on brand. Got it.
So what's the deal? You guys were gamers, but you're not anymore. You're podcasters, or what's the deal?
We decided that we were gamers because the podcast opens with a homeowner's minute. We've moved into a phase where the first thing I have to think about is that I have a broken toilet upstairs that I need to fix. Not, well, I'm off work tomorrow and I can go sit around and play Zelda for 14 hours, right? That's right. What we felt that gamer culture had kind of left us behind.
Life intervened.
Right.
Exactly.
We may not be full-fledged gamers anymore where we can sit down as a podcast and talk about all the news that's coming out or talk about all the nuances of games. We can sit down and talk about our lives for a little bit and what the spare time allowed us to play. And usually that's not something that's, straight release. For me, I'm talking about games that came out in 2014. JJ sometimes plays games that came out last year. We're kind of in that zone, but at the same time, when having you on this podcast, we get to say, look, we're kind of the time travelers in a way. We're coming from 2015 all the way back to 2000 or 2008 to tell Z what's in his future.
My last console was and is a Super Nintendo, and with the exception of a few Star Wars games and Zelda games, that's all I play.
I think we should let people in on the secret then. Why you're here. We alluded to it already. We're going to play a little social experiment with you, Z. We're going to introduce you to new games that are not quite new games per se, but games maybe outside your comfort zone or stuff that introduces you to new mechanics or new franchises that might blow your mind.
Oh, man, I don't know.
Modern classics, you might say.
Yeah.
I'd have some conditions, though. Because I know myself.
And you don't... I think this is fair. And JJ, you tell me if this is fair. I don't think you have to finish them.
Yeah, I think it's fair. If you don't have a good time or you're not enjoying yourself playing a certain game and you've given it, an honest try, that's just like anyone else, right? Like,
there's also certain games I just avoid because, like, what is the kind of game where you build up categories?
That's a broad definition.
Like you have strength and experience and your stealth and your...
I think, are you talking about RPGs?
RPGs, yes. RPG, like you're spending hours killing green slimes to build your strength points up before you dare go into this cave. What are those games? Because those are the ones...
Okay. Those are RPGs. However, that is a pretty outdated way of thinking about RPGs.
Oh, okay.
As Andrew and I both being people who like those kind of games, that was true maybe in the era of A Link to the Past and even earlier games from the NES. But modern games don't necessarily play like that, even if they still have stats that go up.
There are many versions of those types of games now that they have the choice of saying, you know what, I want to build my character. I want to build my character to make the stats go up, but I don't have to run around killing green slimes forever. The game is designed to allow me to run around and kill all the green slimes on my way to that cave, and by the time I get to that cave, I can just go into it. It's adaptive difficulty. I don't have to worry about what's happening, and so you just play the story. You don't have to run around killing green slimes for 7 hours anymore.
Some bad versions of those games wind up giving you this feeling of just being very tedious.
Like those kinds of games exist, and we will actively avoid giving you games that are tedious in that way.
Where you have like 50 menus all over the screen, and you're like you're minding those. You're not really playing the game. You're playing an interface. That's what I'm trying to say.
So no World of Warcraft and no JRPGs.
Okay, and so then there's another point.
Although I don't know, man, Chrono Trigger's pretty good.
No. No Chrono Trigger for him. There's
another category of game, the ones that you play online that never end.
Yeah, that's an MMO.
And that's World of Warcraft.
World of Warcraft.
Those ones, just because I know myself, I avoid those always.
We're not going to give you those games. We hate those.
There's no point in giving you that because then you would just go away and we would never see you again.
Exactly. They encourage you to do that. Yeah. And you can get into a philosophical debate about whether that's a good thing or not, but that is the end result. I mean, they encourage you to spend more and more of your life in this other world, and it never ends. You're starting a whole new life. And for me, knowing myself, I know that would like kind of suck me. If it was very interesting, that would suck me in. My sister's a bigger gamer than I am. She played the Lord of the Rings online game. At the same time, I do like exploring, which is why I like the Zelda games. I love this idea of this new open world Zelda game that's out. To be honest, the Switch is, I think, the first console, if you could consider it a console. It's the first one I've actually considered buying.
It's definitely a console.
I mean, it's absolutely a console. It's not.
Well, that's the first one I've actually considered purchasing, probably since 1997. And what's appealing about that game to me is just exploration. I love just having this world that you can just go interact with, and you don't really have to do anything. You just discover new things. That's one of the reasons I like some of the newer Zelda games that I played recently, because they have qualities that are like that. For me, though, my mind's being blown.
Wind Waker is close to open world, I would say.
Wind Waker,
it's on the spectrum of open world.
Yeah, it was the beginning of trying that sort of system out. I really laugh, though, that kind of you and JJ are totally polar opposite in this aspect of JJ actually kind of hates open world gaming and loves the JRPG stuff with tons of menus.
It's not necessarily the menu stuff that I love. It's the fact that the game is about the story, right? And a lot of the open world games tend to, and it's a trend, not a absolute, but they tend to say the story is what you find along the way while you're exploring. And while that's fine, sure, it doesn't compel me to want to play the game. Like, I don't get joy of like, oh, see that mountain out there in the distance? I'm going to go climb it. Like, that's not fun to me. I enjoy experiencing a story. And so in those open world games, I tend to use the fast travel to like, okay, get me over to the mountain because there's a story thing happening there. I want to see that. And so then the exploration is not interesting to me. So I end up skipping, a lot of what people consider the fun of those open world games by wandering around in the forests or whatever, because I just think it's tedious.
I see the merits of the story-driven game. I just oftentimes I don't find the stories as compelling with the games I played, but the worlds are fascinating, so that's what kind of grabs my interest. If there was a game that had that story that really grabbed me, I'm sure I would get into it.
I so want to make you play The Witcher 3.
I've heard of that game.
A long time from now.
Yeah.
But
wait, that's
one day,
that's the 8-foot end of the pool. Let's wade in first.
I agree.
The opposite views in this aspect, and I kind of lie in the middle where I like the open world, but eventually I want to get through the story. So I think that saying that all three of us have a spectrum of view about these types of games really is going to help JJ and I when we say we all think, that based on your preferences and based on our experiences that you're going to like a certain game. This is going to really lead us into where I think we should go next is what we think you should try first.
Yeah, let's lay it out.
We're gonna wade into the modern classics and ease in with a story in a world I think we already know you love. What do you think?
I think that the game that we're talking about is it will be a good introduction for Z here.
Can you tell we've already deliberated in the background, Z, that we had your fate in our hands before you even arrived?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm getting clued into it now.
I think it's fair. We said modern classics, and I think if you're talking about games like that, I think this game would be one that people would bring up. It is a beloved game made by a developer that people really like, and has both a story and some exploration in it, and I think it's going to be a great fit for him. It's
going to introduce a lot of new elements, especially in a genre that you were worried about, which is RPGs. This is an RPG in the way that you are going to be putting points into things, especially your character, but you don't earn those things by having to run around killing green slimes. There's a limited number of enemies in this game. It's not wandering around the desert. So the game is designed for you to play it and for you to just keep moving along. And the bonus is that you get to make your character whatever you want. Have you ever heard of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic?
I have.
I think this is a good litmus test to see if the modernization of a genre that we know that you maybe don't have a certain appeal for, maybe has changed things for you.
It is this game is a pretty far cry from Far Cry. That's a different game.
That's a game.
It is a game. Actually, it's
an entire series.
It's a series of games, and the third one is something that you may really, really like. It's very open world. Wander around, find things that are happening in the desert in Africa, and yeah.
Anyway, derailed.
Far Cry.
But it is pretty different from how those games might have been back when you were paying attention to them. It has a story. The game it has conversations with NPCs that your character can talk to. You get to be the Knight of the Old Republic, man. That's a cool time period, and this is before any of those Star Wars prequels came out, right?
These games came out after the prequels, but the game's set before anything in the modern Star Wars era.
Right. So it's like back in the way past.
And the cool aspect of this game that you're really going to get into, Z, your decisions matter. The way you talk to people in this game matters. And if you decide, you know what, I really don't like all these people getting in my way, I'm just going to, murder them all. Well, that's going to make you accrue dark side points, and your character is going to become a Sith.
Let's go ahead and nip this off at the bud. You can't be both dark side and light side, right? So don't try it.
You have to make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. But then I'm like, well, what's the game like if I chose the other way?
Well,
who knows?
Hopefully, with a 6-month-old at home, you won't have time to worry about that.
I just got to go for a path. Well,
correct.
I have played Jedi Academy. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Which sort of has some qualities like that.
Yeah, I think it did.
You choose a dark and light path, and at the end, you're given a choice right at the last second, like whether you want to go either way. And
this is more of a slow burn in terms of the path that you choose.
The path kind of builds up over time.
There's no room for gray Jedi?
There is room for gray Jedi, actually.
You can absolutely toe the line and go back and forth if you want. That's perfectly allowed.
Yes, you can sit in the middle, and in fact, if you do sit in the middle, I believe the game has a bonus for you if you're truly neutral.
I don't remember. It's been so long since
I know
played
the sequel had a bonus for you when you were...
JJ, how long has it been? This is a new game to me. How long has it been since you played it?
At least a decade.
Dude, I don't even know. Yeah, probably.
This is the modern gaming world for Zer0CooL. I love it.
Perfect.
It is yeah. So I think that it'll be a fun test, and I will look forward to having you back on to hear your impressions.
And if it's too long, if it's too much RPG, then you say that's what it is, and we'll have you back on to tell us what you didn't like about it, and whether or not the game aged and still is what we thought it was.
Man, I can't. I've got a record.
Oh, well, I want to thank you for coming on to our podcast today and being a good sport and being our little guinea pig, kind of, in a way.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fun little homework assignment, and we'll have you back on at some point to hear your impressions of a certainly a modern classic.
Zer0CooL, the next great host of We Were Gamers.
No, I hope this was amusing to your audience. I'm not sure I have a lot to add to the gamer conversation, but
dude, this is not for gamers. This is for people that were gamers.
Exactly.
I know it might be a little early, especially since he hasn't finished this first one yet. But what we should do soon is build up a database of things people think are interesting. So JJ, tell people where they can send all sorts of suggestions for Zer0CooL to play new games, and maybe we'll filter those, and one of their suggestions will become a new game.
Sure. If you want to send us those suggestions, you can hit up podcast@weweregamers.com. That's an email address that you can send emails to, and send us those game recs. Let us know what you think is cool. You can hit us at Twitter. We are at We Were Gamers on there. We are also We Were Gamers on Facebook. Hit the like on that page. Let us know. Read some articles. Let's see what we got. An Instagram, which is also We Were Gamers. Follow us on the internet wherever you find podcasts. Google Play, on the iTunes Store, Stitcher, wherever you want. Like, subscribe, comment, etc.
All right, keep an eye on your feed for tomorrow, because not only is there going to be a bonus episode, but our little guest here, Zer0CooL, and JJ and I are going to drop a little Twin Peaks on you. So stick around for that. And thanks, everybody, for coming up. Thanks for coming on today and talking to us, Zer0CooL.
Well, thanks for having me.